The state of Italy has designated Villa Salviati in the municipality of Florence as a new additional seat for the European University Institute and for the historical archives of the European Union. The site is a historical building complex which was in a serious state of neglect, situated on the hills opposite the Badia Fiesolana Sea. It consists of a main house dating from the Renaissance period, adjoined by a long building housing the former stables and the lemon house. Beside it, a first garden of formal design open and leads into a second garden on a lower level with adjacent ornamental grottos. The large enclosed grounds, measuring approximately 14 hectares, are partially planted with olive trees. The Salviati family, one of the most important houses in the history of Renaissance Florence, bought the villa on the Badia Bridge in 1445 and immediately had alterations made following the taste of the Medici villas in Cafaggiolo, Trebbio and Careggi. Further works formally defined the building. The chapel and the internal courtyard held works by Giovanni Francesco Rustici. Further purchases of land centered a local agricultural production system around the residential villa, made up of 4 farms within an estate which included 11 more. Over time, the residential side absorbed the farm outbuildings, and in the 18th century transformed them into the wing spaces for the gardens which replaced the fields nearest to the house. The structure, which has come down to us from the time of the Risorgimento, can be credited mainly to the tenor De Candia, who changed the Ragnaia farm into a park complete with gardens and little ornamental lakes. Villa Salviati is a prestigious location, and its return to use is being effected respecting precise guidelines. The European University Institute will transfer a significant part of its academic and research activities there. The villa building itself and part of the neighboring stable block will be reconfigured for such use. It is a question of mediating between conservation requirements and practicality, the minor losses in functionality being compensated by the use of premises of high intrinsic value and which offer important cultural testimony. The historical archives must be easily available for consultation. To preserve its documents, it must have at its disposal rooms with the characteristics of a climate-controlled vault. It was impossible to adapt the historical building to this purpose. The reading rooms will be located in the stables and in large rooms on the ground floor of the long building, whereas the repository is in a new underground construction below the side garden, which is being reinstated. The grounds as a whole comprise 2 distinct areas. One dedicated to reflection and pleasure, the park, and one which retains its vocation to agricultural production with olive groves and vines. Both have been restored in their plants and trees and in their paths, and adapted so as to allow use of the areas which spread out from the lake over the whole hillside. The restoration of the complex was carried out with 2 objectives: to preserve the historic building and to make it functional for its new use in the context of so-called integrated conservation. All features in stone and wood and the terracotta tile floors have been preserved. The basement will house all catering areas. The ground floor will contain a series of lecture rooms, seminar rooms and study stations for fellows. On the first mezzanine, academic and research activities. The first floor will be occupied by various seminar rooms, boardrooms and meeting rooms. On the second mezzanine are more offices, which will continue up to the attic, which will also house the assembly room. The roof coverings were completely disassembled, as agreed with the Florence Heritage Authority. Both the terracotta tiles and the flat tiles and the smaller wooden parts of the roof frame. After effecting the necessary replacements, insulation panels were applied and the roof was put back on. The larger timbers in the frame, which were in acceptable condition, were consolidated, treated and used again. The restoration of the exterior walls, which are complex and of great architectural and artistic value, are a defining element of the whole restoration project. The plasterwork and the decorations were degraded to the point that it was impossible to preserve them in their entirety. The finishings, which have been reconstructed, repeat the decorative motifs in mock ashlar work at the base and under the brackets. The parts in stone have been kept or rebuilt with special cement and colored, as was all the repainting of the walls, in agreement with the Florence Heritage Authority. The door and window frames, the wooden shutters and the protective grills have been restored or reconstructed. The secret garden is an unusual element of the restoration project. The formal and light-hearted details which make it an enclosed and protected pleasure garden for the cultivation of citrus fruit find their climax in the artificial grottos and the ornamental waterworks which look onto it. It is one of the most precious places in the complex and should evoke in the user respect for and contemplation of a past which is still relevant today. The documents making up the archive have various different shapes and supports and require special conditions for their preservation and rigorous security and protection measures. The chosen solution for an underground archive boasts optimal accessibility and minimal interference with the other areas of the complex. It facilitates the rational distribution of space and of the compactable shelving, which develops over 10,000 linear meters of archives, as well as allowing the implementation of anti-seismic building criteria. The building of the archive has no impact on the external appearance of the complex, and above it, the formal garden which once existed there is reinstated. The University of Florence drew up the slope stability analysis, which defined the safety parameters for stability of the stratum which the work risked upsetting. The plan comprises a cavity inside which the reinforced concrete structure is built, for a total surface area of 1,800 square meters. Some of the offices are located in the refurbished greenhouses which lean against the garden wall. The technological installations required to service the new use to which the historic buildings are put require space which can only partially be found in the buildings themselves. With the authorities' agreement, it was decided to locate the Technological Installation Center in a new basement building on the eastern edge of the complex, where the land slopes down in natural terraces which have been stone-walled. The stability of the slope has been checked, and the villa will be connected to the new building via an underground tunnel. This will be grassed over and stone-cladded to reduce its impact on the landscape. Work has been completed according to the project approved by the Department of Public Works and the Florence Heritage Authority, in close collaboration with the European University Institute. The grottos have been restored. The historical archive has been completed. The reception and the reading rooms are located in the long building, adjacent to the areas for the university. Here, academics can search the catalogues for the documents, which will be taken from the depository and placed at their disposal for consultation. Each new document which arrives for the archive will be treated for conservation and preservation, and then classified and placed in the repository. The roofs and the outside walls of the villa and the long building, that is, the stables and the lemon house, have been restored. The final work to adapt the interior is being completed. The secret garden has been reinstated and the restoration of the whole of the grounds is ongoing. The Institute organized some opening events for the Florentine public, which were very popular and highly appreciated by the public. The restoration of the exterior of the villa to its original aspect has been completed, including the courtyard. Apart from the restoration of the 16 terracotta tondi created by Rustici, the mythological figures include, among others, Jupiter with a thunderbolt and eagle, Apollo and Marcia, Bellerophon. The restoration of the chapel is ongoing. It contains 2 marble reliefs by Rustici, a tondo, Madonna and Infant, and on the altar an Annunciation. Finally, all the inside space of the villa will be ready for use. The systems completed and tested, along with the Technological Installation Center.